Hello everyone and welcome back to the studio here in Northumberland, and today I'm going to do a snow scene in acrylics. In with a snow scene, and as you can see I've got a pre-stain on my canvas. This is just so that if I want to leave it showing through here and there, I've got a good even colour all the way around. It's nice not to just have a white plain canvas. And so what I've done is raw sienna that I've just slapped it on. You can see it's a mess, but it's all dried, and now I can put my paint on top of there, cover up any mess, but leave some raw sienna showing through here and there. And you can use many colours for your pre-stain. I like raw sienna though. And what I've got here, my Stay Wet palette, and Stay Wet palettes, mine's very messy. Everything I use is very messy. When you finish at the end of the day, just put the lid back on. And what I've got here, you have like a film underneath this, which you wet or moisten, and then put the other film, the thin film, on top, and then squeeze your paint on there. And it will save you, whatever it costs, it will save you that amount of money with the paint that you don't waste and throw away at the end of the day. Because as we know, acrylics dries up very quickly in your palette and you have to throw them away at the end of the picture. These have been in use for probably a month, 6 weeks now. Anyway, on with the sky wash. And I'm using a 1.5 inch wash brush for this. And all I've got a little bit of water into it, slightly damp, cobalt blue and titanium white. I'm mixing those, plenty of white into them. There. And just like decorating the lounge, just slap it on, move it around, big brush strokes, and filling in. Very loose strokes these, don't fiddle about it. And I'm pushing the brush in fairly hard on the canvas so that I'm getting into the rough texture, the rough surface of the canvas. And then as I come further down, a little bit more water, a tiny touch more water, and more titanium white. Like so. And a bit more blue. And that. And again, more white. And as you can see, this is fairly dry paint. It's just a slightly damp brush. And you can just see little bits of raw sienna glowing through there. Just here and there. It's just a basic base colour. And again, more white, a little bit more water this time. More titanium white. It's titanium white I'm using. There's lots of different whites. Titanium white is a good standalone white, but also it's a good mixing white. And a little bit further down. I'm coming just below half, really. Lots of people talk about rule of thirds, and I've seen people measuring pieces of paper or canvases out to see that they get exactly a third or 2/3. It's not that important, don't get uptight about it. The only important thing is that your horizon line is not bang in the middle, because that split your picture in half. Either slightly above half or slightly below half, and that will do fine. Now, into that blue and white mix that I've got going here, I'm adding a tiny touch of Payne's Grey there. So it's all slightly darker. There you see. Put that in there. Oh, scary. Scary. A bit more here. Looks a bit of a mess at the moment. It'll be fine, he said, hopefully. A little bit more paint spray, I think. Yep. Now I'm going to wash my brush out well. Good slosh out there. Squeeze it between my fingers. And just titanium white this time. Go in there. And pop that on. Just a few bobs here and there. That'll do. And now it's time for some digital art. What? I hear you say? That digit. I'm just rolling my finger in there. Bring it down into the grayer mix. And the same here. I'm just smoothing the colours in together now. I was just thinking while I was doing this, this is a nice sky for a seascape below it. But it's not going to be a seascape. It's going to be woodlands. And I'll show you the picture I'm going to be working from. The picture I'm working from in my mind. I'll show you that in a minute. There, sky done. Now, as I said, I'm going to show you the picture that I'm working from mentally. And this is one I did a few years ago. If Gail can zoom in on that. I'm not going to do the pheasants. Oops. I'm not going to do the pheasants. But what I am going to do is put some figures in there. So, in this case, I just need my reading glasses, I'm afraid. And I'm starting off with some distance here. It's not quite dry, this, but as you can see, look, I'm scoring with my pencil rather than drawing. I'm scoring the paint. So I can see where the line is that I want to paint. This is distant trees here. I've got a couple more taller ones coming up there, which are actually evergreens, Scots pine those. The one here. So Scots pine will introduce a little bit of green into the picture. And now across here. All the way across. There. Now underneath is the land. If you're wondering what I'm doing over here, I keep tapping my phone because it keeps going off. And I know that you can set it for time not going off, but I wouldn't know how to begin with that because it's technology. All the way across there, it's like a snow line below the trees. And now here, I've got the path, the path. And here. And that disappears about there. And it gets wider here. And now for the big tree. About there. About there. Yeah. This is really big. You know that noise? Scraping up a blackboard? Well, it's similar. It goes through you. Big, big tree. bough coming out there. And I'll have a few more boughs coming out of here, or twigs, but I don't need to draw them all. I'll just make those up with my paintbrush. And behind, a couple more trees, middle distance there. And again, I'll be having more boughs and twigs on these two as well, but I shall just make those up with my paintbrush as I go along. Some more trees there. And that'll do for the drawing. I'll put the figures in with the paintbrush. Now it's straight into the distance with the trees. And there's quite a few colours going on in trees. Even though it's a winter scene and there's no foliage as such, apart from the Scots pines, but there's quite a lot of colours going to go in there. Don't just have white. So I'm starting off with my number 8 round brush, sloshing that out. And what I'm doing, I'm going on first of all with some raw sienna. There it is. And like I say, that's been squeezed out for weeks and weeks. Bit of that there, raw sienna. Again, not much water on the brush. I'm just tapping on it. It's a slightly damp brush, that. Paint's a little bit thicker now. There we go. And again, a little bit thicker. And I'm just tapping. Don't paint solidly. And remember, when you leave any gaps at this stage, you've got sky wash behind it. So it's far more natural. You're seeing your sky through the trees, anywhere that you leave the gaps. Now, a little bit of burnt sienna. So I've got raw sienna first and then burnt sienna. Again, that's been squeezed out for weeks, look. Some of that down there. And on this, we're going to have the light coming from the left. Any ideas why? So that I can cast shadow across here. And again, just stippling. All very simple. People say to me, I can't do landscape because I can't paint trees. I'm not painting trees, I'm just dabbing on, giving the impression of trees. And another one I hear all the time, oh, I'm not very good at painting because I can't paint a straight line. There aren't many straight lines in a landscape picture. Like that. Now, raw umber. You see what I mean? A lot of colours in this. Raw umber. Raw umber's the only brown I use. Again, that's been out for weeks as well. Raw umber's the only brown I use. So if you take your raw umber and add a little bit of blue into that, you've got sepia. Add a touch of burnt sienna into your sepia mix, you've got Van Dyke brown. Take your raw umber and burnt sienna together, just the two, and you've got burnt sienna. So I've got 4 different browns from one tube. It's a lovely brownish raw umber. That's mainly going to the base, look. A few bits going up, but mainly in the base. Just stippling. Now, some Payne's Grey. I never use Payne's Grey in watercolours because I don't like it. It's flat and dead in watercolours. But in acrylics, it's a lovely colour because it's a good way of mixing black for a start. But you can use it to darken colours as well, just add a touch of Payne's grey into stuff. Bits here and there. And again, this is mainly going in the base. And you'll notice I'm not waiting for anything to dry. And again, the beauty of acrylics is that you can put light on top of dark. Very much like painting with oil paints. That's why I love it. Acrylics are just so versatile. And these System 3 acrylics that I'm using are lovely, creamy acrylics that go on so beautifully smooth. But as you can see, you've got good strength of colour as well. And for some reason, the System 3 don't seem to go garish in colour. A lot of acrylics can be a bit garish in the colours. These aren't. I love them. Paint with them all the time. And I also paint with them on watercolour paper as well, and treat them like a watercolour. Very, very thin, loads of water into them. The added advantage over watercolour is that you can put light on top of dark. Which I will do when I add the snow to this lot later on. Now for once, actually before I do anything else, I'm just going to tap on with my finger a bit. Just merge a few colours up. Like so. There. Now, for once I'm going to use my rigger brush, number 4 rigger brush. There. And again, Payne's grey. I'm going to have those Scotch pine in there. A little bit more water. When you're using a rigger brush, put it with acrylics, put a little bit more water into it because it flows better. And again down that. Just a few boughs. And remember, this is the trees that will have actually green foliage because they're evergreens. I think I might have another one there actually, just because I can. See, made that up. There. Now, a little bit of Naples Yellow. Naples Yellow is a lovely colour. It brightens and lifts everything you put it on. But just don't overdo it. There. See how those stand out now? Just with a touch of Naples Yellow. Now, like I say, this has got foliage on. So what I'm doing, I'm going to my 3/4 inch brush. And I've got Hooker's Green. Oh, God uses Hooker's Green. That's like admitting you're an alcoholic. My name's Charles Evans, and yes, I use Hooker's Green. Hooker's Green by itself is awful. Never use it by itself. As a mixer, however, it's a fabulous green. You can mix every green you want with Hooker's Green. Like in watercolours, for instance, I use 8 colours in total. If I take the Hooker's Green out of the equation of the 8, mix the other 7 in one at a time, I've got 7 different lovely greens. Mix a third colour into some of the mixers, I've got about 5 secondary greens, and it never comes out muddy. It's always a lovely clean green, but whatever shade you want it to be. And that's why it was made, for Mr. Hooker, who was one of the early Victorian botanists who used to wander around the world cataloguing and logging plants and he wanted a green making for him, he could mix up or mix down without all the other paraphernalia. Because of course in those days it was powders. So that's where Hooker's green comes from, after Mr. Hooker. So what I'm doing here with the Hooker's green and burnt sienna, and with my 3/4 inch brush, just tap on, look, like so. See? Hooker's green and burnt sienna. Like that. A bit there. Now, a little bit of, a little bit more there, I think. A little bit of Payne's grey, wash out, squeeze it out on my smock, and just Payne's grey. What's my that in here? All with a 3/4 inch flat brush. Don't paint leaves. Now again with my finger, just tap on. I'm not rubbing, I'm just dabbing. Merging colours together. Easy peasy. Now, I've had about 5 minutes since I started, so they're dry enough to put the snow on now. They're not dry, but a little bit tacky. A bit tacky. But now it's time for the snow, and I'm using my 3/4 inch brush again. I'm not going into massive detail with this, but what I am doing with the 3/4 inch brush, getting the titanium white out there. Now, split the brush. I'm not going to hurt this brush. This has been on the go for 4-5 years. And all I'm doing, look, is stippling with the split brush. A bit over there. And keep the brush split. Just stippling. And I've been really hard with the brush in the palette when I split it, like so. But when I go onto the canvas, I'm doing it very gently. Because you can imagine, if I pressed on really hard, I'd close the brush up again, wouldn't I? So hard in the palette, gentle on the canvas. That's quite a good little mantra, that. A few bits here. Now, whilst I'm still in with the white, a little bit of blue into the white. And again, split the brush. Because even when you're doing the snow, you've got different shades of the snow. White in shadow, for instance, have blue into it. Again, in with my finger, tap and merge. Now again, with just white, bring this down for the rough stuff at the base of the trees. Notice I'm leaving gaps in between it. There's a reason for that. I'll think of it in a minute. The old ones are the best. Now a little bit of blue into the white again. Put some of that in there as well. So simple. And again, here with my finger, just stroke and merge. Stroke and merge. And we'll have a little bit of snow just up the side of those Scotch pine. Just with white. This time, the sharp edge of the 3/4 inch brush. A bit there. And that will do for those. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Now it's time to go, again, they're distant trees, but they're slightly nearer, middle distance trees. Here, in behind. It's more or less the same, but everything's getting stronger. Wash out the brush first. Again, I'm starting off with raw sienna. This time, I'm going to split the brush. Now, as long as I can see where these trees are, you don't need to go round and paint through them. Much less time consuming just to carry on painting all the way through. And also they come out at the right side, if you see what I mean. Now, a little bit of burnt sienna. Again, splitting the brush. And again, raw umber. And again, split the brush. I can just see these here now. And again, Payne's Grey. Slosh that brush out first. Bit of Payne's Grey. Nice and dark down there. Just stippling. Now before I put any snow on those, I'm just going to go in with my fingernail, look, back of my little fingernail. And just intimate some twiggy bits in amongst that lot. Twiggy bits, that's a new technical term for you. And I'll give those a second just to settle, and then we'll have the snow on those. Now it's time for snow on this lot. So again, titanium white, and again, my 3/4 inch brush, and I'm splitting it. The snow makes such a big difference, especially on a snow scene. bit down here. And again, some more there. And again, in with the blue, with the white. Bit of cobalt blue, obviously the same blue as the sky. Splitting the brush to start with. It's mine down there. And again, a little bit of blue. This time, not a split brush. I'm just painting it on there. Now, just with my finger, merge ever so slightly. Stroke and merge. Tap on that. Just roughing it up a little bit. There. Now it's time for these trees sticking above the parapet here, middle distance. And I'm going to my rigger brush to start with. And I've got here raw umber mixed with Payne's grey. I've darkened the raw umber. A bit more water so it flows. And here we go, look. And bring it all the way down. You notice I'm pressing on harder as I come further down. That way the rigger brush spreads a little bit more and gives me a wider stroke. Look, tiny tip of the rigger brush there. And there. And now watch, as I come further down, push the brush on more and it spreads. Look, the broader stroke there. See? And again, there's another one of those here. And another one. As I come further down, press the brush on. And it spreads. Need some more paint in that one. There, spread it. And now, just Payne's grey by itself. Again, plenty of water in so it flows. I'm putting this down the left-hand side there, look. Sorry, down the right-hand side. And a bit more here. And the same on the other one. And over there. You notice even I went quiet then. Concentration. The other thing about acrylics is they're beautiful for painting outdoors on location. Because you can paint them pretty much like an oil painting, good and thick and strong on canvas. But of course, by the time you've finished and it's time to pack the car up, the acrylics have dried, so you haven't got any sticky mess to try and get home. Everything's drying that much quicker, you don't have to wait. I said outdoors on location. Of course, if I were posh, I would say en plein air. But I'm not posh, and I'm not French either, so I paint outdoors on location. A few tweaks here. There. Now, just leave that for a second and go back to my 3/4 inch brush. Slosh that out well. And again, Payne's grey. Split the brush. Now just with white. Titanium white. Split the brush. Stipple on. A bit more there, that's better. And some blue into the titanium white. Bit more blue. That's better. Now back to my rigger brush, and I want a few bits of white down those tree trunks there. It's a bit thick, that's better. There. Because of course after these, it's time for the big tree, the scary one, which isn't scary at all. There. Here we go, the big tree. And you would think that this is really quite scary because it goes all the way up. But it's not. Don't worry about it. And as I said before, the beauty of acrylics is you can paint light on top of dark. So I'm going in here with just Payne's Grey to start with. And I can put any colour I want on top of that once it's dry. All the way down here. Bumpy bits. Like I say, you don't want perfect straight lines here. And this is all with my number 8 round brush so far. Big one coming out here. Following my scoring marks, which I did with the pencil. And bring it down. Big clump of paint there, look, spread it out and move it. Good and thick and chunky, that paint. I actually love this bit when you're going in with the big, bold strokes. And that now really takes over in the landscape. And bringing it down further on the baseline also, apart from just the physical size of it, also brings it further forward. And now just give that a minute to settle before I put more colours on top. Now you can see that still glistening, so it's not dry, but it's dry enough to put more colours on there. So what I'm starting off with is a little bit of raw umber and burnt sienna mix. So I've made burnt umber. Bit of that, bit of that. There. Nice burnt umber, readily made. And what I'm using is my round brush, and I'm going on with the side of the brush. Look. Not painting solidly, I'm just tapping on with the side of the brush. Just getting more colours into that tree trunk. And leaving Payne's Grey showing through here and there as well. The predominant colour being the Payne's Grey, the darkest. Now, I want a few touches of raw sienna as well. Again, putting it on in the same way. Yeah. Just getting more texture and overall colour into the thing. So it's not flat. Now I'll give that raw sienna up here as well, with the point of my brush this time. A number 8 round brush is such a lovely brush. Now, a little bit of Naples Yellow. And I'm going to have more light coming from the top here. The light's coming from the left. The sun's in the sky, isn't it? So I'm going to have more light in the top of the tree. So a little bit of Naples Yellow. I'm just painting that on like so. See? See how that lifts everything. You can imagine putting that on top of foliage. It's beautiful on top of foliage. You just add some instant light to your foliage. Like that there as well. And while that's still good and wet, look, just with my finger, stroke down and merge the colours. See, instant light to your tree there. A bit more there, I think. There and there. Like so. There. See what difference that makes? I'm just going to have a few little taps of that here and there in amongst the trunk itself. Don't want much. And again, just soften it slightly. Because don't forget we've got a lot of snow to go on this yet as well. So in the meantime, what I'm going to do, go to my rigger brush and have a few more twigs. Twiggy bits. Plenty of water into that. Payne's grey. I'll have some coming out here. And I'm just flicking the brush around a little bit here. They're not particularly planned. See, just adds a little bit of interest. Now I'll have some coming out across here as well, which will cut those further back. See? Another one here. And just let the brush, the rigger brush, bounce around on the page. Don't try and hold it and control it. It's a flicky little brush. Let it do its job. See? So easy, that. Now it's time to give that real depth and roundness with the snow that I put on. So it's back to the number 8 round brush this time. And everything needs to be good and strong. I'm starting off with the round brush. I'm starting off with just titanium white. And you don't want a solid line of snow going up there. Pop it on and leave gaps. More here. A bit keeping that white good and thick. A bit more there. There. Now, what gives the tree the roundness is, like I say, anything going into shadow, white going into shadow, is going to have a touch of blue. I'm going to put quite a bit of blue into this, look, there, cobalt blue, and a bit of titanium white. And the snow to the right hand side is in shadow. Now, just with my finger, merge down the centre line though. You see how on that side now it's in shadow. Isn't that simple? Have a little bit on some of those twiggy bits. A little bit more blue. Quite effective, that, isn't it? Now, I want a bit of rough on the side, so to speak. You know what I mean? On the side of the tree trunk coming out. So again, back to my rigger brush. And again, Payne's Grey. And all I'm doing, loading the rigger brush with Payne's Grey. Now, lay the brush on the side of the tree trunk there and flick out. Look. Bit of rough growth on the side of the tree. Again, another one there. Now, out of that lot, have some small twiggy bits coming out, like that. There. And there you go. Big scary tree done. But as we can see now, it's not that scary. Now, it's time for the groundwork. Sound like a builder. But what I'm going to do to start with is stick the path in, the path. And I've got a little bit of raw umber and a little bit of burnt sienna here. And enough water into it so it spreads very easily. Quite a thin wash that, look. And that's for the path. And now you can see the raw sienna shining through underneath, giving it all a good base. There's more to go into that afterwards, once I've got all the snow in. In the meantime, whack some snow on. I'm starting off obviously with titanium white and with my 3/4 inch brush. There. Get some in here. Good and thick and strong now, look. This is the fun bit. But even in just big blankets of snow like this, it's not all white. It'll be all white, but it's not white. More colours going to go in there. And we're going to have some grass sticking out through the snow as well. But at the moment, just big dollops of white. Yummy. And again, same over here. I love snow. Lots of people hate it. I love it. I'm like a big kid when it snows. My dogs are the same, Frank and Bert, 2 black Labradors I've got. And they're like big kids in the snow as well. So we're all a bunch of big kids playing out in my field when it snowed. This landscape, incidentally, is just across the field from where I'm standing painting. In beautiful Northumberland, very, very rural Northumberland. I'm very fortunate. I've got the sea about 1.5 miles away, Drawridge Bay Beach, which is lovely, about 8 miles of golden sands. But I'm in the middle of nowhere as well, in a little village. Big dollops of white again, loads of it. And again, like I said earlier, you can still see raw sienna shining through. And I haven't got much water in this white at all, it's just a damp brush that I'm using. There. Now some blue, cobalt blue mixed into the white. So there's my titanium white there, look. Bit of cobalt blue into it. And like I say, these colours that I'm using, like the blue, especially in the Payne's Grey and these here, they're all been in this palette for about at least 3 weeks, probably a month. Blue in here. Make your brush stroke count, look. I'm bringing that down, I'm creating a bit of a bank with that. Now just a few daubs here and there. But I don't want to give that a chance to dry. So before I go to that side, I'm going in and merging. I was just talking about my 2 black Labradors, Frank and Bert, and you can probably hear one of them barking in the background now. That one's Frank. See, it becomes more like snow as soon as you get some blue in it. Still more to go on there, but more of this blue and white mix over here. Create a bit of an undulation look. Don't put straight lines on. Make it a little bit bumpy. That's another technical term for you, bit bumpy. And again, get back in with my finger. And then build up a little bit more with the blue over there in the distance. There. A bit more down here. Basically what I'm doing with the blue is shaping the land a little bit more. I'm also adding shading and different tones into the snow, yes. But with those strokes I'm shaping the land a little bit more. Like this bit down here, prime example. Now, a little bit of Payne's Grey into the blue and white mix up. Different shade. And again, a bit more Payne's Grey. And again, shaping the land with a bit of a sharp edge there as it comes down to the path. Now just a few strokes. Darker there. Yeah, like that. And again, back in with my finger. And a little bit of that over there as well. And back in with my finger. Darker there. A bit more blue onto that. Now, some grass. With my still my 3/4 inch brush look, and I've got hooker's green. There we go. Onto there. And burnt sienna. You don't want brilliant, yes you will have grass under the snow, but you don't want brilliant bright green. And put that on there, base of the tree, look. Flick up. And a few touches coming out here and there. Now soften it in. So it's not too sharp edged when it meets the snow. Darken it a bit more. Shut. And again, soften at the base. I've got more to go in there in a minute. I'm just darkening the green again. Hooker's green, burnt sienna. And we're going to have a few flicks of that over here. Not much. It's very effective, that kind of stroke. But don't overdo it. People always do the same. It's kind of like, oh, that's good, that's effective. And so you kill it by doing too many. Effective techniques, they're only effective when you've got a little bit of them. Now, Payne's Grey. Wash my brush out. Just Payne's Grey. And a few of those flicks amongst this grass as well. Obviously the white's still wet, so as I'm going on, I'm picking it up. If you want to keep the dark dark, keep dipping in. And again, softening. And a few touches along this lot here. I've changed fingers now because I've got so much paint caked on that one. So what I'm doing there is basically darkening the base of the green. Now back in with white. And all I'm doing with this, we'll have a few more touches here and there. Nice and strong, the white. Basically I'm just roughing the snow up a bit by dabbing up. Bit more of that over here. This is just white, thick and strong. And I'm just dabbing. Now, still with the white, there's one down here. Nice big chunky bit there. And a little bit of blue, obviously. When I say blue, I mean blue and white mixed. Let's go into the right hand side of that. And again, in with my finger, soften. There's really only one thing left to do now, apart from the final shadow, and that is to stick a figure in. And before I do that, I just need to give it a minute, not to dry, but just to be not as wet as it is at the moment. Because I need to put my hand on the canvas for that. So I'll just give that a minute, and then we'll do the figure. Now, time for the figure, and I think we're going to place the figure about here. I'm just checking where I'm putting my hand. There. Black blob. Now, what colour jacket shall I have? You've got a green jacket, one of those green slimy ones. Country wear. Green slimy, you know what I mean. Hooker's green and burnt sienna. That's a black blob, or should I say a Payne's grey blob, followed by a bigger green blob. It's all very technical, isn't it? Coming down to that. Now, brown trousers, I think. We're sticking with the country theme. Bit of rawn, but just by itself. Two sticks there, look. Going down. bit of Payne's Grey, just by itself. All of this, by the way, I'm doing with my number 8 round. Bit of Payne's Grey for the dark side there. The dark side. Base of his coat. Then down the right hand side of his legs there, look. Now, a little bit of light as well. And that green that I've just finished with, I'm adding a tiny touch of titanium white to the green mix. And pop a little bit on there. More Payne's Grey. Dog. Actually, I'm going to put a little bit of white just to the side there as well, of the head. The dog will have a black Labrador, which is Payne's Grey. And the dog, look, that's just a square. Not thick enough. Excuse me. That's just a square. With a smaller square inset. A couple of sticks down here. Tail on there. Shall we have 2 dogs? Yeah, let's have 2 dogs. Frank and Bert. One there. Square. Small square inset. Couple of sticks underneath. And a tail. Easy peasy, or what? I'm just darkening that one a little bit more. That's better. And you see, I slipped with the brush there, so I've got a lump there. Easily easily rectified mistake with System 3. It's snow behind it, so a bit of white there. There we go, mistake gone. Simple. Now, to finish this off, I need some shadow from that big tree especially. So I'm going back to my 3/4 inch brush, and I've got Payne's Grey with a touch of blue into it. So there's my Payne's Grey, look. Now put some cobalt blue into it as well, there. Whatever's casting in shadow, touch it first. So that tree is casting in shadow. Touch the end of the tree, base of the tree, bring it down, and then take it across. Then bring it up again. Now, have a little bit from those there. With the corner of my brush up. And a little bit from these here. Bringing that across as well. Soften at the top there. And now I'm just going to add some shadow at the edge of this snow here as it comes down to the path. And also we would have a shadow from the figures. And smooth that out. There. I'm just going to darken that a little bit more there. A little bit more there. Just little touches. Soften that there a little bit more. And a little bit more of that dark stuff in there as well. And I think that will more or less do. Just softening that a little bit. I'll do that there as well. I'm fiddling now. Now, where I've got the shadow here in the path, just with a wet brush or a damp brush, pull it out a bit across, look, like that. So that I'm darkening that side of the path a little bit. And that, folks, is that. There we go, job done. Wasn't that difficult really, was it? It's a fairly big canvas, that one as well. But there's only one bit of real fiddling there, and that was with the fingers at the very end. And even that wasn't done with a tiny brush. The rest, the only time I used my rigger brush was in twigs, just a few, but that's not fiddling either. The brushes I used, I've been using these for years, and they just get so much abuse. These are Aquafine brushes, Dale Arowney. Everything I use is Dale Arowney anyway. But Aquafine brushes, I use these, they are strictly speaking watercolour brushes. But as you can see, these are well used with acrylics. I use them for both watercolours and acrylics. 1.5 inch flat, 3/4 inch flat, number 8 round and a number 4 rigger. The paints I use, I mean those will just stand, well, you've seen them being split and look, go straight back to shape, no problems whatsoever. So they'll take any amount of abuse. And they're very inexpensive. I think that on my website is about £2.50. That 3/4 inch flat brush is about £4. You know, they're very inexpensive brushes, but they will stand the abuse and hold a heck of a lot of water. The System 3 paints, these are just amazing. Well, you've seen them going on. They're beautiful to use, System 3, very inexpensive. Dale Arowney System 3. And it's kind of like, I think these are £2.70 a tube on my website anyway, I don't know about anywhere else. And they're just so lovely. Likewise, get yourself a Stay Wet palette because they save you a heck of a lot of wasted paint. There's a couple of brushes here, books here. The new one that's just come out, Painting with System 3, that's been out middle of October, that came out. And that is all about System 3. Dale Arowney System 3 acrylics. Packed full of information because it's not just paint. There's paint, there's heavy bodied paint, there's inks, there's fluid paint, all System 3. It's just such a lovely medium. And as you can see throughout the book, I'm using it with a palette knife, with brushes, with everything. I've even painted on a clump of wood in here somewhere. But it's all in there. And that one, Painting with System 3, new book. The other, I've got a few books out in acrylics. The other one, the one that I really like as well, is the Acrylics for the Absolute Beginner. And it takes you from the very, very beginning, painting on paper, going through to really, really much more elaborate paintings, like horses and things like that. Packed full of tips and techniques, again, with System 3. So there's two good books for you. That one, the new one that's just come out, it's just, I'm really proud of it. It's packed full of everything. So hopefully you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.